come out of the narthex and into the pews. My name's Bill Fisher, and I'm the lay worship leader this morning. So whether you're joining us in person or by YouTube at a later time, we welcome you to Ralph Connor Memorial Community of Faith. And we offer a special welcome to those who may be visiting today. And if you are comfortable, we invite you to stand and introduce yourselves. Do we have any guests here? Visitors?
We did have 3 gentlemen from India, and they'd never been in a Christian church before. They just came in to kind of get a feel for what the church was. So, but they're traveling, so they're on their way.
Well, if they come back, we'll invite them in for treats afterwards. And as you all know, following a worship service, we ask the visitors sign their guest book if they haven't already. And we invite everyone to join us for refreshments and conversation in Gordon Hall after the service this morning. Our United Church Creed calls us to live with respect in creation, and in doing so, we affirm the sacredness of this holy ground upon which we gather here this morning, and of the waters of the Bow River which nourish life here and along its course all the way to Hudson's Bay. As a community of faith, we commit ourselves to care for all life and all that gives life. We also acknowledge with humble hearts that we are worshiping and living on the ancestral and present-day sacred lands of the Yare Nakota First Nations, the Chiniki, Mirispa, and Goodstoney, the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Kainai, the Piikani, and Siksika, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, the Cree further north, and the Chinahan and Secwepemc First Nations to the west, and the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3. They are our hosts, our neighbors, and the wisdom keepers of this land. As settlers and treaty people, we acknowledge that we have formal and personal obligations in our relationship with all of these First Nations. Though the journey may be long, we pray for and openly commit ourselves to walk the path of justice, reconciliation, and right relations with Indigenous peoples. We further affirm our commitment to become more radically hospitable to and inclusive of all people, regardless of age, race, ethnicity, ability, family unit, sexual orientation, or gender identity. The Rainbow Pillar at the front of the church reminds us that we are an affirming ministry within the United Church of Canada, and our ongoing commitment to provide a safe and welcoming space for persons who identify as members of the 2SL LGBTQIA+ community, as we strive to help create a church and a world where all feel welcomed by the boundless love of God we share.
Jesus said, "You are the light of the world, so let your light shine." And one of the ways we let our light shine is living in peace. The Apostle Paul said, "As far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone." May these candles remind us of the light of God's love shining in us and through us, and the light of peace shining to our world as we live by faith. Let us join together in our invitation to worship. As we come here, we form a circle of love. Greeting
friends we know and meeting friends who are new.
We gather in a circle of faith,
lifting our voices, our hearts, and our spirits to the Holy One as we worship.
we unite in a circle of hope,
trusting that what we share here can change our lives, and through us change our world in the way of peace, wholeness, and justice.
Come and join the circle. Our opening hymn is a hymn, Jesus Came Bringing Us Hope. Now, this is often a hymn used during Advent, and these pictures are some Advent banners that were part of the church that I served, and but it's a theme that can work all year round. So even though it's an Advent theme, the themes of hope, peace, joy, and love are for all year, for all days, including today. Jesus came bringing us hope. Let us unite in a spirit of prayer. Let us pray. O Holy One, our human words are never enough to express our prayers, so we ask that you listen for what is beyond our words, to the longing that reaches toward you, the gratitude that beats in our hearts and fills us with joy, the desires for justice and hope amid the gritty, beautiful, tough, and tender in our possibility-laced world. Excite your image in us, that we may pray and sing and act in response to your love, and in so doing, as sisters and brothers of the human family, we would help create a world overflowing with peace, compassion, and well-being for all that lives and gives life. May it be so. Amen. I want to share a story with you today that actually I received from a friend of ours who lives in Berlin, Germany. And it was actually offered in his church as a song sung by the pastor. I'm not going to sing it in German for you. I know. Yeah. Swiss German is my background. Dillenbeck. It was all actually Dillenbeck if you want to know the German. Anyway, that's for another time. So this story I've translated and edited for our context today. So it's a story of a woman who went to a new town. She'd never been there before. She knew nothing about it. And as she entered the town, everyone she saw was carrying a huge bag or basket or box filled with the most incredible fruits and vegetables she'd ever seen. They were just overflowing with a bounty of rich harvest. They all looked perfect, just perfectly ripe and nutritious and delicious And she thought, I need to find the place where these people are getting all of this fruit and these vegetables. And so she wandered around and asked a few questions, and they would kind of point in a direction, over here, down there, around the corner. And finally, she found a place, and on the front of it said, all you can eat, sold here. She thought, well, this must be the place. So she went in, and she said, it says all that you can eat. Can I get apples here? Absolutely. Bananas? Yes. Zucchini? Yes. Passion fruit? Absolutely. Whatever fruit or vegetable you name, you're able to get it here. And so she started to make a list of all the things that she wanted. And then at one point, the salesperson interrupted her and said, wait, sorry, I think you misunderstood. We don't actually sell those items here. We sell their seeds. You need to plant them. You need to nurture them. You need to water them. You need to harvest them and cultivate them and weed them. We provide the seeds. And all these people that you see with this rich harvest is because they have put their love and passion and effort into it to receive this rich harvest. And that's like the church. We can't solve every problem in the world. We can't help every person in the world. But we can sow those seeds among us and beyond us that when nurtured and cared for and supported with each other's love, a rich harvest can grow that is beyond our imagining. We are a place that offers the seeds of faith and hope and love and joy and peace by the way we live, by the way we nurture them in our lives, and by the way we share them with others. May those seeds be spread far and wide. I was actually reading in the Washington Post this morning. There was an article about the resilience of seeds in nature. And they've done studies about how long seeds can survive in the ground until years, even decades later, just the right conditions, and they burst forth. And the researcher said this: seeds have evolved such amazing diversity of strategies for coping with uncertainty. They've created an amazing diversity of strategies for coping with uncertainty. May we have the capacity of seeds to have a diversity of strategy to cope with the uncertainty of our day. Amen. I'm going to sing a hymn. In the bulb, in the seed, there is a flower. Number 703, and I put pictures to this one so they go by very quickly.
Free.
we prepare to listen with our ears and our hearts and our spirits to the reading of Scripture and to God speaking to us, let us pause for a moment of quiet reflection and prayer in preparation for listening. And as we do, it might be a good time just to take 2 or 3 deep breaths and remember that in the Scripture, the word for breath and the word for spirit are the same word. And as we breathe in the air, may we also breathe in that Spirit's touch in order to listen for the voice of the Spirit among us. Listen, God is calling.
Our first reading this morning is from Jeremiah, chapter 32, verses 1 to 9. This is the word that came to Jeremiah from the Lord in the 10th year of Zedekiah, king of Judah, which was the 18th year of Nebuchadnezzar. The army of the king of Babylon was then besieging Jerusalem, and Jeremiah the prophet was confined in the courtyard of the guard in the royal palace of Judah. Now Zedekiah, king of Judah, had imprisoned him there, saying, "Why do you prophesy as you do? You say, 'This is what the Lord says. I am about to give the city into the hands of the king of Babylon, and he will capture it.' Zedekiah, king of Judah, will not escape the Babylonian, but will certainly be given into the hands of the king of Babylon, and will speak with him face to face and see him with his own eyes. He will take Zedekiah to Babylon, where he will remain until I deal with him, declares the Lord. If you fight against the Babylonians, you will not succeed." Jeremiah said, "The word of the Lord came to me, Hanamel, son of Shallum, your uncle is going to come to you and say, 'Buy my field at Anathoth, because as nearest relative it is your right and duty to buy it.' Then, just as the Lord had said, my cousin Hanamel came to me in the courtyard of the guard and said, 'Buy my field at Anathoth in the territory of Benjamin. Since it is your right to redeem it and possess it, buy it for yourself.' I knew that this was the word of the Lord, so I bought the field at Anathoth from my cousin Hanamel, and weighed out for him 17 shekels of silver." Our second reading is from Revelation chapter 21, verses 1 to 6. "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, 'Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away.' He who was seated on the throne said, I am making everything new." Then he said, "Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true." He said to me, "It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give water without cost from the spring of the water of life." Hear what the Spirit is saying to the church.
Thanks be to God.
Shall we pray? May the words of my mouth and the thoughts of all of our hearts be always acceptable to you, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. I want to thank Bill for reading that passage this morning. Lots of difficult names. Good job, Bill. And it's also a fascinating story. He was saying, I don't know if I'm familiar with this story. It's not a well-known story. Why do we care if a guy named Jeremiah bought a field? Well, let me tell you. So Jeremiah was a prophet about 600 years before the time of Jesus. It was a time of war, social upheaval, religious unrest, lack of faith. The nation of Israel had been split in two. Israel to the north and Judah to the south. And Judah, where Jerusalem was located, was being sieged by King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. And so the king, who went to Jeremiah and asked Jeremiah, "Jeremiah, I want to hear a good prophecy. Tell me it's all going to be okay and that we're going to win." That's, political advisors like to hear good news, right? And Jeremiah said, "I can't tell you that. In fact, what I'm hearing from God is that we are going to be defeated. That because you, O king, have not been faithful, you've trusted in armies, you've worked only for your own benefit, you haven't worked for peace and justice and well-being for all of your citizens, let alone others, that your kingdom will fall." Well, the king didn't like that news, so he threw Jeremiah in prison. So Jeremiah was writing this while he was in prison for speaking the truth to power. Often, we talk about that, but often the results are not good for the one who's doing the speaking. So Jeremiah was in prison, and then he both received a message from God, but also it happened in real life, that he was offered to buy a field. Now, in the culture of that day, the right of first refusal was given to the closest relative. And everybody wanted to sell their land. They wanted to get out before the armies of Nebuchadnezzar came in, and they wanted to get any money they could from their property. So this family member sent a message to Jeremiah, who was in prison, and said, "It's your right and even your duty to buy my land." It's kind of like saying, buy prime property in Ukraine right now, or in Gaza right now. Like, it's a war zone. And what did Jeremiah do? He bought the land. You'd think, well, why would he do that? That seems ridiculous. But for Jeremiah, it was an act of hope. An act of active hope. Jeremiah knew and believed in his heart that Nebuchadnezzar would come, destroy Jerusalem, and eventually it did happen. The temple was destroyed, and many of the people of Israel, especially the best and the brightest, were carted off into exile in Babylon, where they lived for generations. Jeremiah knew that the short-term future didn't look good. But he had hope. And his hope was that someday the people would return. that someday somebody, probably not anybody who's born yet, would farm that land that he bought, and to prove that it was his, he said, put the documents in clay jars and bury them, so when they get back they can prove that it was my land, and it would go to whoever would be my descendants at the time. Jeremiah wanted to do something to show his hope for the future. And he wanted to do it in a way that was tangible, active, visible, as a sign to others. Many people that I meet today tell me that they're not very hopeful about our world. They're worried for the future of the planet. They're worried about what's happening within the community in which they live. They're worried about the future of their church. They're worried about the world that will be left to their children and their grandchildren. They're worried about their own lives, their health, their finances, their family situation. And it's easy to ask ourselves, where is their hope? What might hope look like? Where do we see it? In the Bible, there were people like Jeremiah who were called prophets. Now, we tend to think, some people think that they predicted the future. No, they spoke the truth of the moment, and they saw where it was going. And Jeremiah and others in their time, the prophets said, things are bad. Hate to break it to you, they're going to get worse. But eventually, with God's help and the faithful efforts of people of faith, things will get better. There will be a time of peace and justice for all at some point down the road. Now, also in the Bible, there are writings that are sometimes called apocalyptic, the end times. And we heard a portion of that from the book of the Revelation today. And apocalyptic writers were similar to prophets, but they had a twist. They said, things are bad, they're going to get worse, and they added this part, and they're going to get so bad, we can't fix it now. Only God will fix it in the future, in a time to come, in a new world. We heard that image of the new Jerusalem coming down from heaven. Give up on the planet. There's no hope. But even the apocalyptic writers said that it was still important for people of faith to live by faith now to pave the way for that new future, even if it was going to be in a life to come. It wasn't just a message of, well, sit back and wait, there's nothing we can do about it, so just, there actually is a passage in the book of Paul's letter to the Ephesians where he was telling them, don't just, because you think the world's going to end, don't just go sit on the beach and wait for it to happen. You still are called to live by faith and love and justice now in order to be an example of what we hope that will come sometime in the future. In the Greek language of the New Testament, the word that's used for hope is the word elpis. And it's two things together. It's an attitude of certainty, I'm sure it's going to happen, mixed with a commitment to make it happen. It isn't just, it's going to happen and I'll wait. It's belief mixed with action. And so this biblical image of hope is one that is an active hope. It's not a passive hope. It's to move toward the fulfillment of what it is that we hope for. Believe it will happen, and then be a part of making it happen. That's the biblical understanding of true hope. It's kind of like what Gandhi is quoted as saying. Be the change you want to see in the world. Hope comes not so much from talking about it, but from living it, from believing it, from being convinced of it so much that we can't help but bring it into reality. How many of you have ever heard of the term the placebo effect? The placebo effect. So So the placebo effect is basically when they're doing experiments on drugs. They'll give some people a drug that's just a sugar pill. But if they tell the people that it's going to help them, a lot of people will believe it will. That they get a positive result even from something that has no inherent possibility of benefit. Well, I recently read that they're also studying what they call the nocebo effect. That is, they will give people a pill that should help them, but they tell them it won't. And guess what? A lot of people believe it didn't do any good at all. Our attitude has a huge impact on the outcome in our lives and in our actions. And so true hope comes when our expectations and intentions for hope are fused, intimately connected with concrete actions that move in the direction of our hope. Now, I find it interesting in the Bible that Jesus didn't talk much about hope. Why? Can't say for sure, but I think it's because he chose to live it rather than talk about it. He spent time with people everybody else said was hopeless. And by loving them, he showed them the hope that he had. He lived to make hope a reality by seeking justice and peace, by spending time with the poor and the sick and the marginalized, by living in a way of inclusive caring, of tangible faith, of self-giving love. Now, I am grateful that I live in a time and a situation in my life that is not like Jeremiah's. But many people do. Many people are living in situations of violence or in places in the world where there is war or famine or oppression. People whose lives have been turned upside down by devastating fires. People who live with personal hardships of health crisis, of family distress, of financial upheaval. Many people do still today live in situations so difficult, and desperate that I can understand why people feel hopeless. So how can we and others live with hope in this world today? There's a book that I've been reading and listening to, and they actually have a series that you can take a course on called Active Hope by Joanna Macy and Chris Johnstone. And in this book, and the subtitle is How to Face the Mess We're In with Unexpected Resilience and Creative Power. And they identify 4 steps in the process of living with active hope. Step number 1, that it's based in gratitude. That in spite of all the negative, it's important to also be grateful for the world in which we live. The gifts and blessings around us, the bounty that provides our needs and has for generations before and to come, we hope. They say it's grounded in wonder of this beautiful planet. So step number 1, don't forget about gratitude. In spite of everything else, look for gratitude. The second step is to honor the pain. Don't ignore it, don't deny it, but to recognize that we are grieving losses in our lives, in our community, in our families, in our world, in our church. And we need to face that and honor it and name it. Now, if you were here last Sunday, the title of the sermon was Grief and Gratitude. Similar theme here. That it's important to acknowledge the gratitude and the grief. And then they say, out of that, we may develop a sense of survival response. Yes, there's grief, but we have the gratitude, and we want it to continue. We want life to continue. We want things to be good for others as well. And when we have that survival response, which is deep within us, right? Most of us are not fatalistic enough that we say, well, let's just all pack it in. They say then we start to look for resources and for allies and for ways in which we can make a difference and contribute something. And then once we've done that, we then can go forth and take practical steps to make a positive difference. Living with active hope means being grateful, recognizing our pain and our grief, having a sense of surviving for us and the others and the planet, and then going forth to make a positive difference. Now let's be clear, this kind of hope isn't just wishful thinking. It isn't just, oh, things will get better on their own, or somebody will come up with a solution, or somebody else will do something, or God will solve it. It also isn't a denial and an ignoring or avoiding of the difficult realities. It's not apathy. It's not throwing up their hands and saying, well, the problems are so big I can't do anything. Hope is not something that just happens. It's something that we live into. I don't know how many of you remember, before he was president, Barack Obama wrote a book called The Audacity of Hope. And in it he said, I'm not talking about blind optimism here, the almost willful ignorance that thinks our problems will go away if we just don't talk about it, or will be solved if we just ignore them. No. I'm talking about something more substantial. Active hope. Audacious hope. Substantial. It's hard work. It doesn't just happen. And we can only do it if we take care of ourselves in the process. If we do what we need to do physically and emotionally and spiritually, if we have a sense of a deep spiritual life, a connection to the divine, taking care of ourselves, eating well, exercising, all that stuff, taking care of our relationships. But in addition to that, we also need a strong circle of care, a circle of support, a circle of encouragement. Dare I say, a church. A community of faith that is with us every step of the way, that gives us the strength to face the issues in our own lives, but also to work together to bring about something that isn't quite here yet. Now, we may not be able to fix all the problems of the world, but we can let some people know that they're not alone in their situation, and that gives them hope. And we can also be beacons of hope by how we live and how we function as a community of faith. And that kind of hope might even be contagious. It might be like those seeds that get spread and get watered and cared for and grow into something amazing. And there are some people who believe, I want to believe it, but I'm not quite there yet, but I'm trying, that if we all do our point, we'll reach a tipping point where things will shift. And so even though I'm not sure that's going to happen, I'm going to live as though it's going to happen. Because it would be too easy to live otherwise. Hope is something that's always coming, but never quite fully here, because there's always more to do. And that sounds like a big job, and it is a big job, but we do have the resources and capacity to do it when we are nurturing ourselves and have support within a community of faith. Many of us are familiar with that famous passage from the Apostle Paul, where he said, faith, hope, and love are the most important things, and the greatest of these is love. But let's not forget the faith and hope part either. And that hope word is the one that I suggested earlier, that elpis word, which is both the belief and the carrying it out. And we know that just behind me here there are the three sisters of faith, hope, and love. And so, as Ruth and I end our time here among you, it's been 9 weeks, we've had a great time. We certainly want to thank you for the opportunity. We've enjoyed it, we've appreciated it, we've tremendously appreciated getting to know all of you. And we know that we will always carry a part of this time with us and a part of you with us in the days to come. And so our wish for you is that unfolding of what Paul hoped for. Our hope is for a deep faith, an active hope, and a transforming love. And I do believe that as we sow those seeds, as we nurture those seeds, as we embody those seeds of faith, hope, and love, we can make a difference. That we are called to an active hope. To live with active hope for our planet, for all living things, for all peoples, for ourselves, for our community, for our congregation. So in the midst of the difficult days that he faced, Jeremiah bought a field. He was showing his faith and his hope. What are we going to do? Amen. Our hymn, For the Healing of the Nations. special reminder of the ways in which we can bring peace and inclusivity and justice in our world. And Ruth and I would like to leave this rainbow candle with you as a gift and a reminder of the blessings of our time among you. And so, may peace be with you, and offer the peace to one another. And if you feel, offer peace to the planet and to the world and to the community. I'd like to draw your attention to the announcements which remind us of the life and ministry of our church. I'm sure most, if not all of you, received the newsletter that's emailed, and trust that you read it word for word, but if not, just a reminder of a few things. I want to thank all of those who participated in worship today. I want to thank Bill and Ruby, and they're doing refreshments later. Ruth offered to help, but they said, nope, they want to look after it all. So,
I offered to help because Grant is having a birthday on Wednesday, and I was going to get a giant cake. But Miss Ruby has gratefully made birthday cake for all for Grant's birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Grant. Happy birthday to you.
thank you for that, and thank you, Ruby. I know she's been trying to keep it kind of a secret, but thank you, Ruby, so much. And I'm looking forward to enjoying the cake after. Also, thank you to Carol and to Sim for greeting today. And special thanks to Tanya. It's been great working with you in the time that we've had together. And thank you, absolutely. And thank you to Sarah in the office. I've appreciated the time that we spent working with Sarah as well. So next Sunday, Doug Powell will be back with you, and we'll be leading worship and offering pastoral support for the coming days until such time as there is someone permanently in place. I'm going to give Ian a minute to talk about that later. And just to say that you will see that there are some inserts. Is Ruth coming up again? I think she is.
Really, Isabel should be up here.
Yeah, you go for it.
So I spent a fun summer with Isabel offering some different forms of sacred meditation, sacred practices for your soul. And we called it Soul Matters for the summer. But there was quite an inertia. That was a word that we got talking about, that we wanted to keep doing this. And so your Wednesday evenings of Evensong is such a beautiful gift to the church and to the community that we've had a couple of meetings, and we're having another meeting this Wednesday to talk about how we can meld Evensong and Soul Matters into a bigger thing called Sacred Circle. So having Sacred Circle on Wednesday night, and often it'll be Evensong, but often it'll be other things. And many of the leaders from Soul Matters, which is just a summer thing, is going to move into Sacred Circles. So you will have lots of Sacred Circles, thanks to Isabel, organizing it in the fall.
And also certainly to Jan and others from Evensong who were part of that conversation to move it all forward as well. So you'll see here some of the events that are planned, and trust that there will be opportunities for you to continue that spiritual growth in ways other than just Sunday morning. We put some announcements about things that happened at Wild Church and Soul Matters in the Bulletin. And also a reminder, an update actually, of the situation of the Jasper fire. I've continued to be in communication with Linda McLaren, the minister of the United Church there, and I passed along the sayings that people had written down on the hearts that are on the fence. I had to admit to her that unfortunately I waited until after the rains. Something I couldn't read them. They were no longer legible, but she definitely appreciated hearing them, and hopefully there can be an ongoing relationship. One of the things, I also reached out to the church in Fort McMurray, and I said, what was helpful for you after the fire there? And the response I got from the church there was that to keep hearing from people months down the road. They get a lot of stuff right in the beginning, but you know, in October, in December, whatever, if there are ways in which the congregation can express their support, and I will be passing the contact along to Doug Powell, as well as support to the church in Canmore, who also had a fire which has significantly impacted their ministry. So to continue that, but I contacted the Canmore Foundation, and so far over $350,000 has been raised from over 700 contributors, both individuals and businesses, and that includes $100,000 that they received from the Calgary Foundation. So just a bit of an update on how you have been supporting the people of Jasper. Another way you can support the people of Jasper is that Sim has made beautiful gem bracelets, and she will have them in the hall, and all of the proceeds go to support the people of Jasper. So thank you, Sim, for doing that, and thank you for your support. I mentioned that Ian's going to say a couple of words, I think, about the interview process for, hopefully, the call of the new list. Maybe something else?
The search committee has done its initial interviews with 3 candidates that have been identified, and we're meeting tomorrow night to figure out what the next process are. We're committed to just bound ahead and keep this thing going. So 3 very different candidates, all with different skills and experiences, so a lot of sifting to do for us and figuring out how to meld them in with our reality here and our hope for a reality down the road. The other thing I want to do today is, on behalf of the entire congregation and the community, thank Grant and Ruth for taking time to be with us this summer. For express their joy of having been here. Well, it's been a joy for all of us, and we have learned a lot, we've experienced a lot, and we've been refreshed by our summer camp with Grant. And so just a token, a little reminder, a letter from us, or a card from us to thank you, and just plant a seed.
I see you get a little flower, somebody grew a little flower. So
I think that was Quinn.
The seed is growing.
Well, the seed is that with any, United Church of Canada has a program sabbatical for its full-time ministers. And so we will be looking down the road to a sabbatical in a couple of years.
5 years. 5 You need to work there 5 years to get your sabbatical. Hate to break it to you.
Well, I said I'm planting a seed, and you said that they take time. Anyway, you're more than welcome at any time to come back, but in 5 years we may rotate around your availability and work with our minister to have a good sabbatical. Because we've had one sabbatical, and again we had a very interesting minister from Winnipeg. It went really well. It helped us move in different directions. So 5 years. They'll still be going.
Well, thank you, Ian. Ian was certainly one of the first people that I contacted in the process, and you know, there was some wondering from my part early on. Are they going to want to have us? Are they going to want to have us? But we're glad you said yes, and we have already sort of committed. I mentioned last week that we quite regularly, every couple or 3 years, go to Waterton to do the week of worship leadership there. We're looking at coming back for a week next summer, early June, so you may see us in a few July, or you may see us in a few some Sunday next July.
Well, maybe we go down to Waterton Camp.
Well, thank you very much for that, Ian. Appreciate it. Chris, did you want to say anything more than you've already said?
No, I said lots.
So, our minute for minutes.
Well, I'll continue on the theme of summer camp. Have you ever stepped into a forest surrounded by birds chirping, insects calling, and leaves rustling in the wind? The leaders at Mission and Service Partner Cave Springs Camp in Beansville, Ontario, are encouraging children to leave the hustle and bustle behind to enjoy moments of connection with nature and with each other. Nestled right on the Niagara Escarpment, the joyful sounds of children discovering and playing echo throughout the campgrounds. I found a salamander, someone exclaims as other campers rush over to see. Something as simple as, look at this cool rock, draws laughter and excitement. These moments of connection are powerful, allowing everyone to be present and supportive. In such a peaceful setting, the beauty of nature reminds children of the simple joys of friendship and gratitude. This experience can inspire a deep appreciation for the earth and desire to take care of it. Children make music, worship, explore creativity through art, challenge themselves, and connect with others, all together in nature. Your support of Mission and Service allows children to continue connecting in nature at United Church camps across Canada. Thank you. The offering will now be received.
Let us prepare to enter into a time of prayer as we listen to devotion times. wellspring of our singing love, source of all that gives and nurtures life. On a day like this, in a place like this, surrounded by people like this, how can we help but be grateful? We are grateful for this good earth and all that inspires us and nourishes us and strengthens us. We also recognize, O God, that in the midst of our gratitude, that there is suffering. Our planet is suffering. The creatures are suffering. People are suffering. There are places of violence and war, of famine and oppression. And we recognize that. We don't want to ignore it or deny it. But out of that sense of gratitude and our sense of grief, may we have an even stronger desire to work for a world which you desire, a world of peace and well-being and wholeness for all. May we find allies and resources. May we take action and do things that may seem futile, but which express our hopefulness. And out of that, may we go forth into our world to make a difference, because there are people who need us and need our love, and people that we need, with whom we are called to be in relationship, in right relationship, with our First Nations peoples, with newcomers, with all of those who seem like they are hopeless or on the outside or marginalized by others. May we see their value. And may they see within us a sense of hopefulness